The node module represents the functionality around content and content types. So a lot of the specific permissions that you'll need to give a user to edit a particular content type or manipulate a piece of content will appear under this section. Let's go ahead and go down the list. Bypass content access control. What this permission does, and you can read the description to learn a little bit about it, is give the user the ability to view, edit, delete, basically administer any content regardless of the specific granular settings that we set below. So below we have the ability to set permission on specific content types. What this says is that even if we restrict access to certain content types, they'll still be able to work with it to edit, delete, and add content of that content type if they have this permission. We want to set more granular permissions for the guides, so let's skip this one. Administer content types allows the user to add new fields to a content type or remove fields, or add new content types or delete content types. That's a pretty strong permission, and you see below that there's a warning. It says give to trusted roles only. This permission has security implications. We also see this warning here, and then under administer content as well. And you'll see this warning underneath fairly broad permissions that give a lot of control to the user. So keep an eye out for this. We also don't need them to be able to administer content. We simply want them to be able to administer a certain content type. Access the content overview page. This permission allows the user to go to the Find Content section that we see up in the shortcut bar, or if we click on Content, and be able to filter out specific types of content and find a piece of content. Now, because all of the tours are going to be listed on the calendar page, we don't really need to give them any additional permissions for administration pages. The ability to view published content is something we want everybody to have. So you see that both anonymous users and authenticated users have this checked. And because the authenticated user has this role checked, it means that any user with any role will also have this permission simply because they have a user account. And so these are checked and they're grayed out because you can't change this option. If we clicked this under authenticated user, we then have the ability to set the checkboxes for administrator and guide roles. But let's go ahead and leave it checked. The ability to view own unpublished content allows the user to create unpublished content that maybe isn't ready for the live site yet, but be able to edit it. Let's go ahead and check this because we'd like our guides to be able to take their time in constructing content. View content revisions. At this point, we haven't integrated revisions with our workflow yet, so we'll go ahead and skip this, as well as revert content revisions and delete content revisions as well. And we'll come back to revisions at a later time. I'm going to keep scrolling down. So now you see we have groups of permissions that are grouped together by content type. So we have our article content type, which was part of Drupal when we installed it. We have our guide content type, which we created ourselves, our basic page, and if we scroll down, we'd also see the tour content type. Under each one of these, there are the same permissions: create new content, edit own content, edit any content, delete own content, and delete any content. So the basic idea here is that sometimes you want to give users the ability to add, edit, and delete their own content, but not other people's content. And sometimes you want to give users the administrative ability to manage all content of a certain content type. For our guides, we want them to be able to work with their own content, but we don't really want them to mess with anybody else's. Also, we don't really need them to be able to edit articles because we're not using the article content type, at least not yet. Guides, because the guides are created by the administrator, or basic pages. So all we really want them to be able to do is work with the tour content type. So I'm going to scroll down. And next to tour, let's go ahead and check next to create new content. Going to scroll over here to guide and check that. We want them to be able to edit their own content once they've created it. So let's go ahead and check that as well. We don't want them to be able to edit any content, so we'll skip that one. We would like them to be able to delete their own content, so let's go ahead and check that one. and we don't want them to be able to delete any content either. Okay, so that takes care of our specific permissions to allow the guides to work with tour content, but keep them compartmentalized so they work with only their own content. Let's go ahead and explore the rest of the permissions. I'm going to scroll down. We have the overlay module, which we haven't covered yet, so we'll skip that. We have the path module, and typically, if we're not allowing the user to administer content types, we're typically not going to want them to administer URL aliases or create aliases either. So let's go ahead and leave those unchecked. Same with Path Auto.